up there, Dora.
Yeah, it is good money. And if you do it the right way, it can be very, very rewarding. Really good to see that.
At least it wasn't snowing there like it was here.
Yeah.
It's funny, we came home Tuesday. Snow on the ground immediately started once we got to Kentucky. Like even in Cincinnati, that was pretty stuff.
My sister lives outside Minneapolis.
Oh, really?
They have had 7 inches total. Yeah.
Plus we got, I remember we had more like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember all of her kids are grown now, but I remember when they were younger, one year, they got this 2 weeks at Halloween, and it stayed on the ground for April. And most of the time it does, once
Really?
it starts in November.
Because it's so cold.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like one of those also means winter's through the middle.
I have an emergency. I'm still back on there.
All right, it is 6 o'clock. We will get started with the Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission meeting for February 2025. We'll start with the approval of January invoices. Take a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion,
Second.
and second by Mr. Stone. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Approval of the January 9th, 2025 minutes.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
And second by Mr. Green. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Approval of this month's agenda.
I'll make the motion for approval.
All right.
Second.
And second by Mr. Green. All in favor say aye. Are there any items for postponement or withdrawal that are not listed on here?
Yes.
And noticing PDP 2025-01, the Goodwill Ashton Park Path, as well as the PDP 2025-03 Bluegrass Baptist Church. Upon the notification letters being sent out, we discovered that there was an issue with those notification letters. We put the wrong address for that meeting on there. This created some confusion, but primarily staff has major concerns that the notice that was sent out would not meet the state statutes nor the requirements. So at this time, staff is recommending that those 2 items be postponed until the March meeting. And that would allow the applicants more time to renotice.
Okay. So can we, do we need to take those separately, Mr. Perkins, or?
No, sir, I think you can do them both in one.
Okay, we've got 2 items, PDP 2025-01, the Goodwill Industries, and PDP 2025-03 Bluegrass Baptist Church that staff has recommended that we postpone to next month.
And that's just to get the notices correct. So
That's
it's not
correct.
a problem with the application.
Not a problem with the application. Yeah, I do need a motion for that.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Smith, motion by Mr. Jesse. Let's see, we'll take a voice. Ms. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Vest. Yes. Mr. Stone.
Yes.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. All right.
Chair Mifflin, one other item.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
You'll see that PDB 2024-56, the Community Mental Health Center, has been listed as withdrawn.
Uh-huh.
I would like to clarify that issue. When this project came forward, it was in conjunction with a larger overall project. However, there are still some issues going on with the larger project, which would make the consideration of the Community Mental Health Center project not worth doing at this time. So what we'd like to do is to withdraw it, but allow them to waive their fees when they do resubmit
Oh, okay.
at the appropriate time.
Right, okay.
And I would like to just get that on the record.
That way we don't have to refund a fee and maybe
Exactly.
resubmit and that sort
Yep.
of thing. Okay. Does everyone understand that? Do we need to make a motion on
Just to
that?
clarify the record, wouldn't hurt.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to waive the fees of the community health center when they reapply.
all right. Hold on just one second. Let me get caught up with some paperwork here. All right. And that is, all right, I have a motion by Ms. Singer,
Second.
second by Mr. Green. Ms. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
I have to not vote because of the conflict of interest.
okay. Mr. Vest,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. All right. So that is whittling these down rather quickly. All right. The next item, before we get going, do we have any consent items? No. No consent items. Mr. Perkins, if you would swear in anyone that'd like to speak, please.
Everyone who's signed in to speak tonight, you can stand and raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the statements you're to make tonight to be the truth to the best of your information and belief? Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. The first item on the agenda then will be the Gaines Farm property, ZMA 2024-68. This is a zoning map amendment for 182.44 acres from A1 agricultural to B4 PUD, and R2 PUD, and C1 conservation located at 1367 Paynes Depot Road. This is a public hearing, and so I will now open the public hearing to hear this.
Thank you. This is a continuation of the application heard last month for the same property, same zoning and everything like that. I believe it was continued for kind of continued discussion on some of the variances, waivers, and also the volume of proposed activity that they were going through.
Can you speak up a little louder?
In the interest of time, I'll leave it up for the board if you would like a full kind of rehash of everything, or we can also kind of go through the parts that have not changed and kind of discuss the other components. Do you guys have a preference from one to the other?
Benz, we heard it last month. If it's okay, we'll continue on, and then if there's anyone that has any questions, we can address them. Is that fair enough? Okay.
Okay, so as we've stated previously, this is a zone change request from A1 to B4 PUD, C1, and R2 PUD. The various acreages are up on the screen there and are also in the staff report. This is the property here. This is the Gaines Farm property. It is at the intersection of Paynes Depot and McClellan Circle. And this is their proposal that they've put forth before us. So you'll have to excuse me while I try to find the appropriate slides. This is the distribution of the zones that they're looking at. The boundaries have not changed. The acreage is still the same. They have proposed this type of road layout here, so connections to Payne's Depot and McClellan Circle, as well as through Leota Way. And previously and as presently conditioned, if any new road construction comes in, staff conditions that it not come from Leota Way, it comes from one of the arterials that is more appropriately sized for the heavy machinery required for roadway and utility installation. This is our B4 area, so it, I guess an amendment to this one is they do show an added landscaping area along the roadways to kind of have that pedestrian walkway component. And this is the R2 area. Also, they've also made those improvements as well. And then the final one is our C1 area, which has not changed. They did a traffic study that I will kind of walk through. We can, since we've already discussed it, I will move from that one. This is the listing of their requested waivers and variances as part of their application. They are a PUD, so in exchange for public amenities and benefit items, they can essentially request that they have some accommodations from regulations made. I've kind of color-coded it, so they've requested 8 items, specifically one of which is a shared item between the apartments and the single family. Staff recommends approval of 3 of them, or 4 of them, and 4 deferments for the others to the PDP or master plan phase. I would like to note specifically the 3rd item in the chart, the single family lot size. Previously, they had requested a variance from 7,500 square feet to 6,000 square feet. After review and discussion at our last month's meeting, they've amended that request to be from 7,500 to 6,500 square feet. So the lots would be larger sized. Previously, we had mentioned the similarity between the request for smaller lot sizes here and other developments that this applicant has requested. It's pretty consistent to ask for 6,000 to 6,500 square foot lot sizes as part of their PUDs, and they've amended it obviously to kind of go towards that 6,500 area. One other item, just to kind of point it out, the R2 standard density is 12 dwelling units an acre. They are kind of, as part of their PUD, migrating the density, so they're keeping the outer areas where it is the single family, so along the existing residential neighborhood to the north and along the Cane Run area. They are requesting a kind of a lower density and transferring that density to their apartment areas so that they can have kind of that overall site density of about 6 units an acre. Just in the single family areas, it's about 3, and in the multifamily areas, I believe it is, what was it? Yeah, 3 in the single family, up to 22 in the apartments, but again, just kind of pushing that intensity and density towards the middle, as stated here. So this is just kind of a distribution of where their waivers are kind of being located. Previously, they had requested, I believe, 671 total residential units. I believe when I was re-listening to the record, it may have gotten a little bit misconstrued. It is not 671 previously single family and then more multifamily. That is the total, which has now been reduced to 659. So it would be proposed as 251 single family product lots along that orange area, and then in the multifamily area, they are proposing 406. As part of their multi-area request, they would want to see an increase in the building height, which, again, staff recommends deferment to the actual development plan phase so we can actually see the building layouts and kind of understand how this is going to kind of look before we really start giving large variance requests in that regard.
Could you go over those numbers again real quick? Single family and...
Single family is 251, and multifamily is 406. I believe it is on the second to last paragraph on page 3 of the staff report, if you need to reference that one.
Thank you.
As part of the subdivision and development regulations, single-family developments of 200 or more lots or or multifamily units of 100 or more units have to have at least 2 entrance locations. In mixed density developments, we've previously allowed for a total of 150 lots or more before they need to install that secondary entrance location. And staff would recommend that we continue that condition standard that we've done previously for PUDs and just apply it for this one as well. So I previously very briefly showed the road layout, which is in the dark blue. You can see it as the hashed line. At the meeting in January, they talked about some trailway connections, some enhanced sidewalk amenities that would potentially be used as their open space provision requirement, which we would generally put at 10%. And they have kind of shown that there, so you can kind of see in the brighter green coloring what the enhanced areas would be with street trees and other kind of wider sidewalks, as well as they do propose 2 internal parks, one of which being in the R2 area, which is kind of the square in the middle, upper middle, and then the other, which is the triangle that's kind of in the middle of the B4 areas. They've also shown some kind of light use passive recreation options in the C1 zone, which we have previously approved as part of site development plans. Staff does recommend conditioning that they still be required to do the 10% open space, which is our standard for PUDs, and would recommend that you can credit at most 5% of, or 50% of that 10%, so 5% of the total area. Gets a lot of percentages, but 50% of that 10% may be in the C1 areas as long as it's kind of this passive approach. And then the other remaining 5% needs to be, or 50% needs to be integrated into their B4 and R2 areas to connect the neighborhoods and the commercial area to that amenity. Staff believes that that is an effective route to allow for kind of more structured walkways and trailways, as well as kind of having that passive component where you actually get to kind of immerse yourself in nature. And that it illustrates and it meets the intentions of that C1 passive recreation designation. When we're looking at zone changes, we refer to KRS 100.243, which lists our standards for review. As part of the map amendment review process, the Planning Commission must find that the amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan, or in absence of such finding, that one or more of the following apply. Chairman Mifflin, did you have something? I saw the hand raised. I just wanted to make sure before I got too far into it. So one or more may apply, that the existing zoning classification is inappropriate and the proposed classification is a more appropriate alternative, or that there have been major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature within the area that were not anticipated at the time of the comprehensive plan adoption. As we all so remember, and we've been probably 8 months out from when we came before you guys, the comprehensive plan is relatively new and fresh. And this is our proposed future land use map designation for this property. The purple being a mixed use area, so higher density residential with some commercial components. The light yellow being a low density residential component, so at or under about 4 units an acre is generally where we have kind of talked about previously. And then that darker green being the Greenbelt Conservation Area. As part of the comprehensive plan, we did propose an amendment to the 91 Greenbelt, which is in progress and under review by the city, which should be brought before them hopefully soon in ordinance. And they've reflected that new C1 boundary, that new Greenbelt boundary in this plan per our request in order to make sure we're up to date and up to snuff with the new proposals as part of the 24 comp plan. This is kind of a very dense write-up of the mixed-use PUD standard, or mixed-use designation. Basically, it is meant to be a mutually supportive mixture of commercial and residential activities with pedestrian-focused or pedestrian-scale features for minimal automotive reliance. And the uses in the commercial area should reflect those which would meet the daily needs of day-to-day functions. So potentially an office for medical care, grocery store, everyday supply store if you needed like small amounts of, I don't know, toilet paper or something like that, and other amenities. It also allows for higher density residential areas when designed in a walkable, bikeable environment with potentially townhomes or apartment projects. And the density would only really be allowed when we have that good mixture of use. So it's just important that we have that mixture really. As by the name, mixed use, that's the expectation. This area is also identified as a neighborhood center. I thought that font would have been way bigger. I apologize. It is in the staff report. A neighborhood center concept is just an area where it's been identified as a green field that is being within our urban service boundary that has not been developed yet, and having a development strategy that essentially focuses on a very complex, very planned approach, where we are making sure that we're using our land efficiently, reducing motor vehicle reliance, having an enhanced building character with quality building construction, and providing public use space in public park areas. There are expectations related to form, mobility, services, and standards, which are in the staff report if you guys feel so inclined to review it. Neighborhood centers are also explicitly, they should be providing a minimum of 10% park space, which staff does believe is satisfied or would be satisfied with the conditions that we've put forward. Again, it's very hard to read that, and I really do apologize that the font is very difficult to read, but it is in the staff packet. This is in the Greenbelt area, so this is the Greenbelt as a whole, going from Lyles Road to the Great Crossing School Campus. This is kind of in the middle. It's not quite on the other side of the Paynes Depot connection. That would be the Blazer Farm to the south. This is a kind of midpoint there. There are specific standards and expectations for what the Greenbelt looks like that have been outlined in the plan. It's meant to be a buffer. It's meant to be a way that protects rural character, leaving largely undeveloped areas between agricultural uses and urban areas, and a natural preserve where people could use that as a linear park, multi-use trail, kind of allow people to immerse themselves in nature in a way that is non-terribly disruptive to the area. Over time, is expected that land along it would be reserved for conservation through the C1 zoning, and easements for future recreational trails be created. Land adjoining would be permitted to develop with respect to the common goal of having a linear feature, having that kind of protection and that boundary between the two areas. And those areas should be in commercial development outside of the bypass and adjoining the Greenbelt Reserve should be located at that major intersection. So in this instance, it would be the intersection of Paynes Depot and McClellan Circle. This is just a transect model, so it's showing kind of this shift from a very undeveloped area to a more developed suburban style that we're more familiar with, to a mixed use kind of increased development area to a commercial area, kind of showing that transition of increased intensity that the Greenbelt development area standards set by or recommended by the comprehensive plan are kind of pointing towards. As stated, we use the comp plan for consideration of zone change requests. As I've previously also stated, it's planned for low density residential, mixed use, and the Greenbelt uses. In case you guys didn't know, we have no mixed use zone right now, so we have considered a combination of uses in proximity as an appropriate execution of the mixed use, with the hope and understanding that we would be establishing a mixed use soon. We are proposing some text amendments with the B4 zone, the R2 zone, and the R3 zone that would allow for that kind of mixing of uses that we're really hoping for. The two zones that have been proposed allow for a variety of commercial and residential uses that are concluded to satisfy the mixed use intent. And the B4 zone offers a lot of design control and amenities, and which we believe would satisfy that mixed use designation. The R2, the way that they've proposed the R2 with that lower density to higher density kind of shift as you approach the intersection also aligns with that kind of style that we're seeing with the comprehensive plan. And areas that are rezoned, all areas proposed for rezoning that include the floodplain, other protected lands such as the Greenbelt be rezoned to the C1 zone, which is being done at this time. Just very briefly, these are just some of the goals and objectives that staff finds to be in alignment with the comprehensive plan. Having that very interconnected network of streets and roads, having intense uses or more intensity and more activity where there's multiple options for transportation, having flexibility in design patterns, preserving farmland for agricultural uses, encouraging the development of walkways, parks, green spaces, and ribbon parks, putting in higher quality sidewalk constructions, and et cetera, et cetera. I do want to note, we had previously kind of talked about this area and specifically Objective C, Community Forum 3.1 talks about the preservation of prime farmland for agricultural uses. And I just wanted to use this as an illustration of what has been planned for this community. So starting in the 2006 comprehensive plan, this has been included in the urban service boundary for development for a residential, urban residential use in this instance. And over time, it has retained that plan from the community for almost 20 years, that this be developed in this kind of manner. And now that we have an application before us, staff is finding that this has kind of always been this way. While we understand that we wish to preserve prime farmlands, this has been a long-standing expectation that this property would be developing. And I just wanted to use this as an illustration of that community understanding going forward.
Before you leave, just
Yes.
as a matter of explanation, back to 2006 and 2017, most all of that area right in the center is gold in color, and then in 2024, we don't see any gold color. What is the difference between there?
So, in the 24 comprehensive plan, we identified that the previous usage of urban residential and rural residential were ineffective to show densities. So previously it was just urban residential, and urban residential could mean single-family lots. It could also mean 12 units an acre, 16 units an acre. So in the 24 comprehensive plan, we said, why don't we mix this up between low-density residential, which is the light color, and medium-density residential, which would be the gold color. So that's kind of that shift in how we viewed residential development patterns.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on lot sizes. So currently, what is the smallest lot size that's ever been approved in the city limits of Georgetown for building a house on? Or what is
That's
the
a doozy.
But what is the standard overall? And that's matter.
For single-family development in,
What?
What your screen showed before was 7,500 square feet.
so it is zone variable. For single-family developments, in the R1C, R2, and R3 zone, the minimum lot size is 7,500 square feet.
Okay.
So this would, 7,500 is the zone standard for that instance. If we've seen smaller ones, which we have seen before, I couldn't quote you the exact smallest one, like lot whatever at XYZ neighborhood, but the standard for all those zones is that minimum size there.
There are different zones though that would have a lower square footage though.
No, that is the smallest. R3 is the highest density residential zone, and for single-family development, 7,500 is the minimum lot size for that zone.
So how about other different zones though? Is there a smaller square foot lot?
No,
That is it?
yes.
Okay.
No, but we have approved some smaller size lots in infill areas within town.
Yes, that's correct. Other PUDs have seen similar lot sizes down to about that 600,000 square foot. Though there may be smaller ones under 6,000
And
square
we
feet.
kind of run that on our average, and we usually do that kind of on an average, where as long as they're averaging that, is that where we see some of those lower ones?
Usually they request that smaller lot size at the get-go, and then more often than not, they greatly exceed that. So if they ask for 6,000 square feet, we maybe see one that's like 6,100, but more often than not, they are closer to the zone standard that the property's been rezoned to.
So
Is
that's
the
truly,
6,500 an average, or is it?
I will defer that one to the applicant on that one specifically.
so the really super small lots, it's really an off when it really happens, is that right? Know what I'm saying?
In my practice here, that is correct. Very rarely do you see a lot that really gets incredibly close to that minimums requested at the time of their rezoning.
What was it last month when we talked?
6,000. So this is an increase of 500 square feet, which has resulted in that reduced number of total residential units requested.
Thank you.
Of course. Anything else before I quickly move on, or slowly move on? based off of the findings that staff previously stated, staff recommends approval of the zone change request. These are the 4 variances and waivers, so the ones that are being recommended in favor of at this time are the single-family residential lot ones. Again, deferring that apartment height and setback, as well as the commercial ones to when we actually see a development plan coming in, so that we may be able to actually review it on a case-by-case basis as opposed to offering a blanket. The 4th one is just allowing for that density shift from reducing the density along the greenbelt and the neighborhood to the north to that apartment area that's in the middle, where that mixed use is proposed in our future land use map. There are 10 conditions of approval, which is the first of 6 are listed there. Listen to our rules, annex into the city of Georgetown, rezone their greenbelt to the C1, be responsible for the installation of all infrastructure required to serve the development, and that the approval of zone change includes the concept plan. If there's a lot of variation, we may require them to return. The number of residential units would not exceed the 659 that have been requested at this time. They return to the Planning Commission for review of a site master plan to actually see more specifically what everything's laid out as. I did not mention it at this portion today, but they did do a traffic study. However, it is dated and it is only for the commercial area. So we would like to see an up-to-date one, including the residential areas and including all of the changes in the area, specifically the Jennings Farm to the east that had been rezoned, and at the time when they did their traffic study, that was not under consideration or a known factor. Condition 8 talks about their minimum usable open space and how it needs to be 10%, and 50% of that 10% needs to be located within the neighborhood, and then those connections need to be made. Conditions 9 and 10 have to do with the number of residential units to one entrance point, and then condition 10 is just a clause that we've been adding to things, that if they do not progress to their preliminary final within 3 years, the board may take action to return this to the zone it is right now, which is this A1 zone, or a more appropriate alternative zone at that time. And that is everything. I apologize, it went a little bit longer, but again, it's effective to understand where we are. Just
Okay,
for everyone's
staff
memory.
have any questions for Elise? I do.
Mhm.
So, we went from 6,000, or 6,500, I'm sorry, went from 6,000 lots that they made them 6,500 square feet.
Correct, that is the change.
So, what is the total number of lots? How did that change?
Before it was 671 lots proposed in January, or residential lot, units proposed in that time.
Uh-huh.
And now it is proposed to be 659,
659. So just,
with the apartments included in that one, so it's not, yeah, 251 single-family lots in total now.
And the rest of, the difference in that number is the apartment.
Yes.
So 259 now, single family. What was?
251,
251.
and then, Rhett, can you do the math for me on that one? I don't actually have the mental math right now. If you have the previous staff report, they may also have it.
So the,
10, at least 10 lots have been reduced down.
yeah, I was
think
gonna
it
say
was
the
261 or something.
multifamily hasn't changed at all. So if the total number has gone from 271 down to, or 671 down to 659, so we've got 12 less lots in there.
Commissioner, we have all the, we can answer all these
Yeah, that-
questions.
Okay.
For sure. We have them all in detail and can explain how not to get caught up on
Okay.
a lot versus what they really are. Most
Right,
just all
okay.
happy to do it.
I've got one more question for Elise.
Yep.
The recreational area, in the green space, it's got to be usable in there. It can't,
Yeah, you have to be
a
able to
creek
access
bottom
it.
or a marshy area or something like that. It's gotta be where you can actually do something there. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be
Okay.
our intention. At this time, they are showing kind of the low-impact trail system, which is in that light blue color in
Gotcha.
this one here.
All right. All right. That's all my questions.
What's the difference in medium and low density?
Medium density, it kind of comes down to form difference more so than anything else. Medium density is more of a mix of duplexes, townhomes, and single-family, and low density is predominantly single-family detached dwellings with an occasionally there may be a townhome in there as a,
It's not really tied to lot size as much as it is to that.
not as much. It's meant to be more, in the future land use designations are meant to be more of a visual cue and a perception thing than an actual like quantitative value. So,
Okay.
I believe it'd be like maybe 6 units an acre roughly, if I had to guess, but.
Thank you.
Great.
And we will take questions from the audience here. We'll let the developer speak, and they may answer some of your questions.
Good evening, Nick Nicholson here on behalf of All Homes. I have some basically kind of minimum lot size and minimum widths of developments that we've recently done that I think will answer a lot of the questions that we just kind of talked about. And I will apologize in advance, I am fighting the same funk that I think most of all Kentuckians are right now. And so I do apologize about my voice and if I have to grab some water during this presentation. I will not kind of go back over the same points I previously had made last month with regards to the zone change itself. With what we are asking for as far as the individual zones and what is recommended in the future land use map for the past 20 years and kind of detailed out in the staff report. I think that the zones themselves are inherently in compliance with the comprehensive plan, and most of the questions really were about, does this layout make sense and does this density make sense? And so, as I had kind of mentioned last month, we are in the incredibly early stages of trying to figure out what this development is going to look like. And so we had not really kind of paid attention to what the actual lot sizes were, how the topography of this works, what environmentally sensitive areas there might be on this property. And so like we just kind of put out there, this is kind of what we think in comparison to what we did with South Crossing, what we did at the Price Farm as well. And so that's where the original 50-foot lot widths and the 6,000 square foot minimums came from. When we actually put pen to paper, we found that only one lot on the previous plan actually was under 6,500. And so we had absolutely no problems whatsoever raising the minimum lot size to 6,500 because again, like minimum is not typical. Typical lot sizes are actually what is going to be much more prevalent. And like we are happy to basically increase those PUDs to what is comparable to what we've done. As that kind of handout shows on price, we actually got the 6,000 square foot minimums approved with a 45 foot lot minimum. And so we are above both of those standards on this development. And the exact same with South Crossing. South Crossing was 5,500 square feet was the lot minimums that were approved with 50-foot minimums. And so, like, the minimums are kind of established because it's a initial gut stage guess because we are so far away from these plans actually coming to fruition. As like we looked at the Price Farm recently, and when that first started, it was, the first preliminary plat was approved in December of 2008. We're not even at the preliminary plat stage. Once we took over in 2010, we've started development. We still don't believe that we will be done until 2030 for that development. And so that is how long of a process you are talking. You are talking 22 years of development work that goes into this to try to figure out, okay, what does each individual lot actually look like and how does this development kind of come into fruition? And so we are just at the very beginning stages of this, and that's where these kind of minimum standards are coming to kind of come into play.
Nicholson,
Yes.
If you could, just for reference for all the folks in the audience, the South Crossing development that you mentioned is the one behind, or across the street from Kroger.
Yes.
Behind the apartments over there. The Price Farm is where?
That's the Abbey at Old Oxford, on
Old
off
Oxford Road.
Road.
Okay, if any of you have been out there. So that's the two developments that we're talking about if you kind of compare as you drive through.
What was the name of the development there by Kroger's?
South
Crossing.
Point,
South Crossing?
South Crossing.
Yes, sir. And as part of kind of our, also kind of putting pen to paper, we also kind of looked at what the existing development was there today that Ball Homes did in fact develop. And we made sure that we basically staggered and put some of the larger lots that go actually 70-foot wide next to the existing lots that are much more kind of in comparison to what is the existing conditions. As Elise kind of went through, we've provided significant detail with regards to how we can comply with these open space requirements. We're not kind of concerned whatsoever with regards to being able to meet the conditions of approval. We probably think we will exceed it. There is a significant amount of areas in the C1 that are outside of the floodplain that we will be able to put kind of, true usable open space features, as well as kind of doing pocket parks along the way with a kind of enhanced sidewalk with street trees and wider sidewalks in order to create a true pedestrian kind of multimodal feel to this type of neighborhood, kind of as called for in this kind of comprehensive plan. As anybody who has driven along here knows, there is a lot of topography on this site. We're not trying to necessarily change the topography. Anyone who has gone through our developments would know that we enjoy rolling hills. We like kind of topography, and that is going to remain. And I bring it up specifically because we have not gotten a chance to truly study what the impact is going to be on the topography with regards to how the commercial center works and how the multifamily works. And that is basically why what we are asking for today is maximums. Like, this is, no matter what, we will not ever exceed the maximum number of units or what is talking about. Once we actually get in here and we figure out how this apartment layout works out, how these apartments are going to actually kind of function with what the kind of consumer demands today. I mean, we might be adding kind of garages to the sides of the apartments. We're gonna have to, we know we have to deal with kind of the impact that the commercial requires, which is kind of flat lands, which requires a lot of kind of changes to what the multifamily area is. And that's why we've kind of put the multifamily behind the commercial and then kind of loaded the entire single family behind that, in order to make sure that we are able to deal with topographical changes without trying to make anything kind of a flat, plane by any means. And so I'm not gonna be surprised when we come back that, you are looking at a decrease in density in these multifamily units, because we just don't know at this point. We don't know how we're going to be able to adjust with what the commercial demands and how we deal with the land itself. We are so very early in this process. What we are really asking for today is just to be able to implement what your comprehensive plan has called for 20 years. And that is to bring this property into developable area and do it in such a way that makes sure that the future of Georgetown is secure. Why we have an urban service boundary is because we don't want sprawl. The only way you don't have sprawl is if you take advantage of the land that is inside the urban service boundary and you do it in a responsible way. And that's exactly what we're here trying to do. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to go back over the stuff we talked about last month. Whatever the commission desires, we're here for. Oh, also on the waivers, no issues whatsoever with the staff report. We are in complete agreement with the staff report, waiting on all those waivers. It makes perfect sense for you all to evaluate those once you actually have development plans in front of you in a few years' time.
All right. Any other questions? All right, we will
Thank
take
you all.
any questions from the audience that may have. If you would, just come up here to the podium and state your name. Make sure we'll get going.
Hi, I'm Lisa Manning. I'm from 133 Ferguson Lane.
Lisa, excuse me, let me
Yeah, go
interrupt
ahead.
you. I noticed several people have come in late. If you have not already signed in,
It's not here. Somebody did sign me in
let
earlier.
Mr. Perkins swear you in, and if we can get your name.
I should be on there. Somebody was signing.
Okay,
You're on there.
you're on there, so go ahead. Just anyone
swear,
else,
I'll be-
if you would like to speak, if you'll come up here and see Mr. Perkins or Elise and get signed in, so when you're ready to speak, you'll be ready. Yes,
I
ma'am. I'm
apologize
sorry to
if this
interrupt.
is a question that you guys already answered. What is the timeline as far as when this will be breaking ground and when we expect this to get started?
Years. Well,
Like how, like before you're gonna purchase the land
get
now?
started,
Okay,
right.
As soon as we get some plans approved.
okay, so it's,
Develop the plans, draw them up, get them approved.
This is
Start
our,
on phase one.
you're seeing a lot of very detailed plans here.
Right.
We're trying to do a very good job of letting that be seen. But all these things where you see, there's gonna be other hearings about that.
right, I
That's
understand
all.
that.
Oh, right, okay.
So at the earliest, when would you start breaking ground to get started with phase one? And where would that start?
I mean, this
Sewer
year
and
or
water
next year?
primarily, gentlemen.
Huh?
Sewer and water, that's what you've gotta put in.
Yeah, there's infrastructure and a lot to be done, and Brian, I don't know.
At best, I would think 7 or 8 months would be started with phase one.
Okay, and where would phase one be started? Which section is phase one?
We have someone interested in a lot out front, so we'll build that entrance next to the lilac farm and come around and start some single family.
Where the orange part is?
So you would basically, we would be kind of building this entrance in here as well, but also there would be activity in the single-family area as well, yes.
Okay, so probably the only thing that I would just request of you guys, and you all know what I'm about to say, we have Publix coming in there too, which is taking the entrance to McClellan View. As far as entrances, I did see on some preliminary plans, and I didn't, and again, I'm sorry if I missed it. Our neighborhood only has 47 homes, and I'm not sure that it is capable of traffic from 671 homes, or now 659. And I would just really prefer that if you guys are gonna plan this out, that you put the entrance on, by the Lilac Farm, over there on 62, and even behind Publix, and connect it back to the back of the neighborhood, behind, off of Frankfurt Pike, so they can get that way, rather than using our neighborhood entrance, just because we only have that small, tiny neighborhood. We've already had 2 people sell, and we have 4 or 5 people who are ready to sell because Publix and this is now happening. So we love our neighborhood, and you guys developed it. So
We're gonna have an entrance other than your entrance or access point, but with phase one.
okay, but at any point, are you
part of the
planning to
approval here.
use our entrance
We're
for
not
that?
gonna put any construction traffic through there at all.
Okay, what about, will that be advertised as the main entrance to this? Okay, so I know there is a connection point, but I guess that's our biggest concern in our neighborhood is you not putting a bunch of traffic there. We have a great view, we have the farm, it's great
I'm
right now.
speaking out of my own terms, but once that main entrance gets in, I'm not sure the real benefit of people going that way, not going out the main entrance and going that way. They would be hitting I don't know, I would think that wouldn't be as bad as it could feel, right? You know what I mean?
And that's why I'm here, that's the only reason. We're already losing part of that because of the Publix thing, and then one of the things that you guys did propose was that was gonna be one of the main entrances, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
And one of the
So-
conditions of approval is to ensure that we're not funneling traffic, construction traffic through the neighborhood.
We agreed to that as part of the.
Yes.
Okay, but even once it's all built out, will that be considered main traffic area to go through?
I mean, it's a public street, I think
Yeah.
your people would tell you that it's a public street, and that's why the connectivity is there.
Right, I understand
Like, Paul
that.
Holmes doesn't have any plan to make that up.
Like, I don't wanna see a sign there saying,
Yeah, I
hey, you can get back to the 659 homes back here.
Just so y'all are aware, we understand the impacts and stuff like this, and we've actually done the opposite. We went back after the last meeting, and we specifically made sure that we put lots that are next to your all's homes that are the types and sizes and things of your all's homes.
Okay.
So that's what's back.
I did see that right behind me. I'm at 133, so I'm right where that little.
And part of the recommendation of the traffic study is to put a traffic signal at the Lilac Farm
Okay.
entrance.
Okay.
And so that would immediately become a much more desirable exit and
Agreed.
egress place, even
Okay.
for you all,
Okay.
to be able to go through there. And so I would be shocked if folks would be traveling there when there's a stoplight.
Okay.
Hold on,
Hold on.
Thank-
just a second, Jerry, just a second, let her.
Yeah, I
finish
think
with it.
that's really the questions that I had. I just, as I said, we've already had 2 people sell just since the public thing came out. And because they don't want the public's traffic going there. And now I've got 3 or 4, I'm the president of our HOA, and I've got 3 or 4 people who are like, we're putting the house up for sale in the next couple months because we don't want to deal with the whole ball homes
Publix is
behind
not
us.
on this side.
No, it's at the corner, so where our entrance is,
I
they're gonna
know.
be turning and going that way. So we're like, great, so we have Publix going one way, this neighborhood going the next way, and we're just, I love our neighborhood. We're really close as a community. We have a lot of parties and our kids get out and play together, and I'm just like so bummed. Cause I just didn't want all the traffic from that.
You all were, you had like a little area in there that was in
We do.
a area that was gonna be developed, and for a long time, it was really just you guys right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, Jerry.
I'm Jerry Bergenhagen. I live in McClellan View subdivision. To Lisa's comments, if you put in 2-car garages for all the facilities and the apartments, that's 1,314 cars that could come down Loyola Way to get to the new public. Think about it. It's possible. Probably not practical, but possible. 1,314 cars could come out of that neighborhood with 2-car garages. Now, I want to speak to 3 other subdivisions of Ball Homes: McClellan Springs, McClellan View, and that new crossing subdivision. McClellan Springs, Ball Homes built 60-foot wide lots going down a street that backs up toward Hall. With a 6,000 square foot lot, that means it's 60 by 100 feet. Going to 6,500 square feet with 60 foot only adds 8 foot to the length of the lot. That's diddly squat. Secondly, those homes, the only homes that Ball Homes could build on those lots were 2-story. Why? Almost all their floor plans for single-family homes require a wider lot. The homes are very close together over there in McClellan Springs. Fire in one, the whole street's gone because they're so close together. McClellan View, I live there. The lots are 7,500 square feet. There's 16 feet between the homes. I think that's sufficient for fire protection from one home catching fire to the other catching fire. So I'd love for you to stick to your 7,500 square foot lot size. The homes built in McClellan View were bought and then built. The subdivision down there by Crossing, I believe, was built and then bought. If you drive through that subdivision, every single family ranch style home is exactly the same design. Garage, front porch, 2 windows. Garage, front porch, 2 windows. There's at least 20 of those homes that are the same. And I would venture to say most of the 2-story homes in there are just 2 or 3 floor plans with different frontages on them, different garage positions and so on. So I think if the high demand for housing in this county, I question that Ball Homes would be able to sell a home design for a lot and then build it. That's what they did in our neighborhood, and we have a tremendous variety of different style homes in that neighborhood. That subdivision you guys built down there in the Crossing is the crappiest subdivision I've seen in a long time. Almost all the 2-story homes are very dark siding. I don't know why Ball did it. I really don't. My home's a Ball home and I love it. And I like what you guys do, but that one was trash, in my opinion. All right, Did I have any other comments?
So
No.
can I ask you a question? The
Sure.
subdivision you live in, what year was it built?
My home,
Yes.
I bought the lot in 2013. They started construction in October, and I occupied the home in May of 2014.
Do you know what year the first house was built in that subdivision?
We were the third house built in that subdivision. So
2014.
sometime in 2014, I know there was
10 years ago.
a Manhattan that was built, and another style home, and another home that was built completely brick. Okay, and then there was another two-story home that was being built that was, it's brick-faced. And all of the homes in our subdivision are brick-faced as well. That's not true of that crossing subdivision.
I believe the last home in our neighborhood was built, we moved in 2016, and I think the year that we moved, they finished the last house. It had been an empty lot, so it was built in 2017, I believe was the last home in that neighborhood.
On Buchanan Crossing.
Buchanan Crossing, but
Yeah.
when I moved in, all of the other homes except that one lot were built out.
Yeah.
And that was 2016.
All right,
Well-
thank you. Excuse me, Jerry. You finished here? We've got some other people here.
Sure. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right,
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman, if we could, we've had a lot of talk back and forth, which has been really constructive, but it's really hard to keep the record straight and get the recording straight. So if we could, any comments probably ought to be up here addressed to you, and then try to get, all the responses and whatnot to do the same.
Yeah. If you have a question for them, state your question. They're taking notes, and then they'll come up here and address them there. So, yes, ma'am.
Lynn Lewis, I live at 154 Ferguson. I'm right at the corner of Lyota Way, so we will get the majority, we'll get all the traffic that goes by. So we moved into the house in 2015, pretty quiet neighborhood, 44 houses. We were here in the fall, and Publix was approved. And so then we're dealing with more traffic in the future coming in and out of our neighborhood. And so that's something, a big change for our neighborhood. So what's gonna happen is we will no longer, after Publix comes in, be able to make a left turn out of our neighborhood. We'll always have to make a right and go down and turn around and come back up. So now we're going to, with these extra 659 units, we're gonna have more competition to make that right turn and come back in, because the Lavender Farm, that's gonna be an entrance, and so those people will be coming in and out of there, as well as what's coming out of our subdivision. So my concern is the amount of traffic that we are going to be seeing. Yes, I understand that there are two other entrances and exits off McClellan View and at Payne's Depot, and I think that those entrances will be used, and I'm glad that those were added. But logic tells me that these people that are in the apartments and in the residential area, when they want to go to Publix, they're going to go through our neighborhood. They're not going to go out onto McClellan Circle and make a left turn and go in that way. They're going to cut through the neighborhood. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm right there at the corner. I got 659 people who potentially during the week are going to be going to Publix, and I think they're going to be coming down through our neighborhood. And like I said, we have a small neighborhood, 44. We have a lot of little kids in our neighborhood playing, more traffic. That's my concern, is that I think it's going to change the character of our neighborhood, and that makes me and many others very sad, because it's going to, people aren't going to be as free to walk and to be out traveling around the neighborhood and playing outside. So I would love to see that entrance not be developed in Lyota Way, but because I think it's gonna significantly impact us. From a small community, little neighborhood with 44 houses, and we're gonna expand it to 659. It's a lot more traffic. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Lynn. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm a little out of place here.
Could
My
you
name
give
is
us your name,
Christina
please?
Rush, and I live up Long Lake Pike. You might say, why am I here? Well, this type of density does concern me on a number of different levels. I came here to live in Scott County over 10 years ago. Loved it. Still loving it, but concerned about the level of growth, how quickly it's growing, and the manner in which it's growing. And are we asking the right questions? For example, on an infrastructure basis. Certainly, the developer is going to be paying attention to what's in their development, those streets, the water, and the sewer. But who's talking to GMWSS about increased capacity? Who's talking to the school superintendent about more capacity? Who's talking to the road people about more capacity? And the overall flavor of Georgetown moving from a wonderful smaller community to one that's becoming very, very urban, packed in, suburban kind of flavor. I don't believe it's a great thing to put homes so close together. You brought up a wonderful point about fire safety. These homes are really close, and it really is important to give single-family homes some room. It's what everybody would want. I know it's also a matter of affordability as well, but to just pack them in like that without asking all the questions. There's also another thing that I'm not sure, and I may be completely wrong on this, but when a developer, where I used to live way up north, when a developer came in, they had to pay impact fees. This would be money that would go to the various areas, whether it's schools and sewer and water and roads and so on, over and above their own area. I don't know if that's done here. If it isn't done here, it should be. Because what happens is these developers come in, they do their thing, and then everybody else has to pay the price of their development. So I really would urge everyone here and the Planning Commission to really consider all the details and expand beyond just, this is the plan, oh, you've thought about everything on this lot. It affects the whole community. It affects all of the traffic. You guys all know what it's like to travel around here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Crazy, okay? You're backed up at all sorts of intersections because of the schools and everything else. So it's important to, when, I think it's a joke to call it medium density, those are really high density single family homes. It's important to take a look at the biggest picture here and keep Scott County a really desirable place to come in. If the traffic gets bad, it's a royal pain in the neck. And road rage is already beginning to be an insidious mess. And that's when people who are country-oriented are then thrown in with a whole lot of traffic. So thank you, and I appreciate you listening to me, even though this doesn't directly impact my home. I travel a lot, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Just to answer a couple of your questions, the Planning Commission has no control. We do not have an impact fee at this time. Georgetown City Council is looking at it, just for the record. But we don't implement that. As the developer, they've got a lot of different stops along the way. They have to talk with the water company. They have to talk with the fire department. They talk with the school. So all the things you mentioned, they're done behind the scenes, and maybe not to to your satisfaction, and a lot of, and maybe not to our satisfaction, but they are done. They click all the legal boxes along the way there.
Talking is one thing, but we've just paid for 2 brand-new high schools.
Well,
Do they have the capacity? It's important, these guys stand to make a lot of money, okay?
That's what
And
they're
it's
in business
important
for.
that they give back to the community. Having them talk to water and roads and schools, you guys need to know, you guys need to be part of that conversation. That's the checks and balances.
And I think
So-
And
part
we
of
are.
that maybe is not clear in this conversation, we're talking about this development, but Elise talked a lot about the comprehensive plan. All of those discussions also happen during the comprehensive plan process so that we can determine, okay, you know, what are the available units that have already been approved? What do we anticipate is the demand? What is the capacity of the water and sewer system? So all of those discussions do take place from a planning commission perspective when we develop the comprehensive plan, which we revise every few years. The most recent one
I
was
know,
last year. So-
I volunteered and I went to the 2017 meetings.
Okay, I'm just
So
explaining
I'm
to you
aware
that those
of
discussions.
a lot of that, but it's the details. The devil is in the details.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the density and everything else and how it
Yeah.
affects everybody.
Understand.
And even how it affects those who live in that particular community.
Sure.
It's of paramount importance. So it sounds all good, and they have very polished people to come up here and make you all feel comfortable. So now it's your
We're not-
responsibility to go beyond that and say, are we really comfortable with it? That's all I'm requesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to clear up one thing for record, just, I also take notes throughout these in case there's any, items that we feel needs to be mentioned. For the fire setbacks, there is a ordinance that was passed in the 90s that said homes need to be at least 15 feet apart from each other or 7 each on each side, so that each property owner is bearing the responsibility of having that safe transit space for, it is specifically sized for fire vehicles. So while there may feel like they are particularly close, the standard is 7.5 feet, and we do not budge from that for the interest of fire safety.
And that's 7.5 feet on each lot.
Per lot.
Correct.
So
It's evenly.
you were saying 16 feet between your homes, well, all homes are at least 15 feet apart.
And that's
So, yeah,
specifically
that-
for the
that's
fire
significant,
vehicles
yeah.
and their equipment and the people. So that is an established standard that we've been holding everybody to for 30 years now. In pertaining to questions about schools, we have been in conversation with the schools to help them identify, this is the development patterns we're seeing. These are the areas that are proposed to be developed at a non-agricultural, non-1 unit per 5 acres standard. And kind of in those areas identifying, okay, schools need to be in this location. They're gonna need more support in that regard. This property itself does not have a future land use school designation, or a quasi-public is the appropriate designation type. However, that blue coloring is the school designation. That is the quasi-public use area that would allow for schools to be put in, and conversations with the schools with other individuals to kind of facilitate that. So we have identified that this area is subject to a lot of growth, and we have accommodated for that appropriately by having the space per the school's request for their schools to be installed in that location. So this, I'm not entirely certain about the size of the school, or of the portion of the property to the south that is proposed to be the quasi-public, but I would say reasonably it's probably 20 acres, 15, 20 acres right now, which is the size that the school system has requested for, I believe, a elementary school or a middle school. So we have accommodated for that location. And to answer and reiterate your statement, impact fees have been reviewed as a topic that the city of Georgetown needs to undertake. It's not our responsibility at this time to be the ones that are installing that. Georgetown Municipal does have a privilege fee system, that is the cost to bring the utilities to a site, and then over time the money does return sort of to them. Again, I would defer that exact logistics of the privilege fee system to the Georgetown Municipal providers, but there is a fee system that is involved with their side of things.
Right.
Elise, I do have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You just show a slide about the different, over time, the zoning and so forth. So can we go back this property was on there, as a 2006 comp plan,
Yes, that is correct.
that it was to be developed, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for me?
But that other subdivision were built after this came out in 2006, so they would have been aware that this was there?
I do not know when this property was explicitly rezoned, but assuming that it was in close proximity to when they were subdivided in 2013, this would be the 2006 plan would be the plan that they were rezoned under, and that was the comprehensive future land use map that they were being reviewed against when they came in,
And with the urban service boundary.
with the urban service boundary and the designations.
And then the other question is, you heard the fire and the schools. So are we also talking, does the police come in talking to you, all the different services?
All through the development
We have,
process,
yes, and we have been in conversation with Chief Allgood about their development patterns to ensure that there is appropriate public safety provisions in that side of the coin. So we have been talking with them and continue to talk with them regularly about what we're looking at, what they need, that type of thing, that type of song and dance.
Thank you.
Very good.
As we've discussed before, the comprehensive plan is a predictive document, right? It does not establish zoning or anything of that nature on its face. I just don't want anybody walking out of here tonight and tomorrow say, oh, well, there is going to be a school there. That's not what this document does, okay? But it does help in a predictive pattern of recognizing that we do need to reserve space for public facilities. Quasi-public could be just about anything that's of public or governmental use. It could even be a park. Again,
School, library.
School, library, but again, to kind of circle back on that conversation, yeah, pretty well anything that can serve a public benefit, whether it be local government or above. I just wanted to clarify that we're not here saying, putting words in Billy Parker's mouth and, you know, and saying that, James Stone Elementary is going in there or anything.
I
Be
can see the
nice.
Georgetown graphic headline.
Right, yeah, I just, between that and Facebook. All that being said, though, I will say once this initial concept came in, it's been, a little over 2 months ago at this point. Of course, I'm pretty well connected with the schools, used to work at the schools, things of that nature. We were just there today at Great Crossing giving a presentation, actually. We did reach out as soon as this one hit our plate, as well as a few others, because we do recognize that schools are pretty well co-located now, especially, secondary education, things of that nature. And that we just all want to stay on the same page as far as demands and stresses, things of that nature. At the end of the day, while we can kind of help predict these patterns and help the schools manage that, they are their own body. While we can kind of try and play matchmaker with parcels or areas or help them, hey, this is what's coming, at the end of the day, it's up to them to identify and purchase property. So there are no new schools and no new chicken restaurants after tonight, okay?
Mexican.
Or Targets, or all the kids today were asking about Olive Garden. And that was a big disappointment for them to learn that O'Charlie's was not going to be Olive Garden.
That was the big thing.
So, that's all I
Chicken
got.
and coffee.
Yeah. I just wanted to talk tonight. It's a conspiracy.
You felt left out?
Yeah.
I will say, I know that, we talked a lot last month, and I know that our decision here won't satisfy everyone. I do appreciate that the developers listened last month and did go back and make some very tangible changes to their plans, at least to satisfy some of the concerns. So I know that's not necessarily always easy, so thank you.
The developer, is there anything that you all need to address that you feel like?
The only thing I would kind of say in closing is, everything we've kind of heard today is development plan related. And we are at the beginning stages of that. There's gonna be a lot more of these hearings that go into the development plan stages on what connects with where and how traffic is handled. What we haven't really heard is that this specific request that's before you today with regards to the zoning is not in compliance with our current comprehensive plan. As far as the development community is concerned, all we can do is present plans that are in compliance with your all's adopted comprehensive plans. And we certainly believe that for all of the reasons laid out in the staff report, we have done that. But happy to answer any questions.
Charlie, can I ask another question?
Yes, sir.
There-
Jerry, come on up to the,
We gotta get you on the microphone.
Okay. There's several tree lines that run down through that farm. Are you going to tear those down?
So there are a lot of requirements with regards to how the residential buffering handles is kind of
Right.
adjacent to the agricultural land. So a lot of that is already protected, and that comes at the next phase. But yes, anything that is lined with the green belt and adjacent agricultural is kind of, it's already kind of protected.
Okay, because this tree line, this is a tree line that's roughly right behind my house. And then there's the woods that's basically there to the left. And then there's this tree line down here and it's down across the back. And I would hopes that stuff would stay.
So once we actually get zoning in place, we have to do kind of, tree protection plans and
Yeah.
landscape plans, and all of that still is to come.
Yeah.
Yes.
They aren't necessarily very good trees,
Sure.
because I got a couple of
Sure.
them in my backyard.
Sure.
But they do provide shade, and we have seen wildlife, coyotes, foxes, rabbits, and deer run through the back of that farm over the years, so.
Do you want the coyotes in your backyard?
No, I
Okay.
really don't want them, but they're wildlife. I thank you.
We'll run all the coyotes up towards your house there, Jerry. Send the deer over to Lynn's house.
Hey, Charlie,
Yes,
I might just add a little bit, but in the past 10 years, in Farm World magazine, it says that Kentucky has lost 20,000 acres to subdivisions and new subdivisions, whatever, just in Kentucky only. So it's coming. People not going to like it. Everybody can't suit the other person, whatever, but there's no place to go. But 20,000 acres just in the last 10 years alone, and it takes 10 or 12 years to get these things on the maps to show where you're going. So don't be surprised if anything may come up next time.
And I think the comprehensive plan and the things like the urban service boundaries, it does prevent sprawl, because it says this is what makes sense to develop. And I know that doesn't always make folks happy when their neighborhood is abutting what that area is, but it does prevent sprawl throughout the county. And certainly, I'll tell my age, I've been in the county for 53 years. I think James has been there for, you're just 25, right, James?
No, he's here for 4.
You're 54, right?
Got a big
I
year.
get it. Scott County has changed tremendously, believe you me.
Oh, yes.
But I'm sure a lot of folks in this room came here, right? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's changed a lot since then. We're a growing community. Some of that's good, some of it's bad. And unfortunately, we have to take different opinions and different matters on that in terms of what's good and bad. But at the end of the day, it's our job to make sure that we uphold what the zoning ordinances say that we must do. It's not always what our opinion is or what we might like to do, but ultimately the law requires that we have to do what the law says is the thing to do, which is the zoning ordinances. So we have to apply them equally and fairly. And that's all I'll say. And David's just been here, he's 20 years old. Brad's older than me, though.
Aye.
all right, are there any other questions, comments? Seeing none, I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion for approval of ZMA 2024-68. And I don't think there's any changes to the variances that we need to know, right? It's as written in the updated packet. Do we need to talk anything about the deferrals of things to the PDP?
No, I don't believe that's entirely necessary at this time. It's on record that this is what they've requested, and then it's on record of what staff recommends in favor of. So it would just be in accordance with staff recommended
In accordance with staff
waivers and
recommendations.
variances.
And the ones in the conditions of approval don't have the ones that are deferred and do have the ones that are recommended for approval.
Okay, perfect.
I'll second that. All right, I have a motion and a second for approval of ZMA 2024-68, the zone change for the Gaines Farm property. Ms. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Come back to me, no.
Mr. Vest,
Yes.
Mr. Stone,
Yes.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
No.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
No.
and the chair votes yes. Okay, we have approval, and if you would come up here and see Mr. Perkins.
I would have a question going farther.
Yes, sir.
And like in the future, like, them, there's a stub now in a road possibly going through there.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Yeah, close up.
And so the public hearing is now closed, and we can discuss other matters
Yeah.
there. But this
So-
is unofficial there.
Yeah, very official. So in an area like that, where you've got an open lot, and they put a road through that lot anywhere, right? And you could tie into that, I mean, can you bulldoze a house and put a road in to put a development behind that, or, I mean, there's no law against that, right? That's what I'm asking.
The road that's been stubbed out already, or stubbed out?
So you're saying like in the instance.
Was there a stub there for that, or was it just a lot?
There is, Leota does have a road stub.
Okay.
It is intended for that use, and it is a public road stub.
Yep.
It was even named.
Yeah, it's got a name,
Right,
it doesn't
yeah.
have paths, so
Yeah.
it's publicly maintained
That's what, this was no surprise.
It would have been required, right?
to connect to Leota.
They would require us.
Right.
We would, yeah.
We would have rather built another house there, but we were required to put stuff in.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was assumed. I just wanted to make sure of
If
that.
you go to the Colony subdivision and you go off 25, take Colony Boulevard all the way back to the back.
Yeah.
There's a stub there to go across that farm to the bypass.
Oh, wow. Just for, if they had to put that in at the time.
Yeah,
have it
yeah,
available
because
eventually.
they knew at some point in
Yeah.
time that
Yeah.
they need to go out that way.
Hopefully Mother Nature doesn't take it back before it's in use.
Yeah. All right, what next do we have?
The Baptist Health?
Baptist Health, PDP 2025-02, Baptist Health Medical Office Building, preliminary development plan for a two-story, 24,436 square foot medical office building with emergency room services located at 115 Emerson Way.
I'm gonna give it a minute for the room to clear and conversations to be moved outside.
Yeah.
And then we will continue with the hearing
If
and
we
I'll
could
reintroduce.
get Ball Homes and interested parties to step on out to the hall. Thank you. Jerry, can you go out in the hall, please? Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
I'm sorry, folks.
No problem.
Greatly tonight.
In the interest of clarity, I will reintroduce this application. This is application PDP 2025-02, a preliminary development plan for a two-story, 436 square foot medical office building with emergency room services. This is the Baptist Health Medical Office Building application. It is at 115 Emerson Way, a 3.1 acre parcel, zone B4 PUD or community commercial zone. Surrounded by B4 uses. They are proposing 24,400. Or 12,218 square feet per floor. Per the B4 standards, the minimum parking spaces required as part of this development is 98. They are proposing 136 with access off of Amerson Way as well as Pleasant View Drive. There are 3 variances as part of this application, which are listed on the PowerPoint here. So, the previous month, we had reviewed the Amerson commercial development. So this is the same aerial shot here. It is in the darker red color, but not quite the school site red. And it is at the corner, it's triple frontage lot, specifically in the orange at the corner of McClellan Circle, Pleasant View Drive, and Emerson Way. This is a more zoomed in portion of the property here. This property and the one that kind of tapers directly adjoining to the south is also owned by Baptist Health. Again, we're just reviewing this one square portion of the property.
Excuse me, can you repeat what the other lot is again? I didn't see that.
So it's not shown here, but it's the larger square that's in orange, and then there's a taper,
Oh, to the west.
specifically this portion that I believe is also owned by Baptist. Is that correct, Brad? So this is also owned by Baptist, but at this time we're just reviewing this one.
And that's Southland up there?
It is Southland Christian, yes. And then the tennis courts is part of the elementary school, and then there's Emerson South Townhomes that is just off the corner of the screen there.
Thank you.
Of course. So this is the proposal here. I'll have some annotations on it in just a moment, but they are proposing their medical building located central to the property with parking around it and 2 access points onto existing public roads. So the access way is identified in the orange there, so there is an option for those who are coming off of McClellan Circle to make a right-in only, so no right-out, no nothing like that, just the right-in to allow for quick access to their emergency services side of things. Or you can also go around the building to the parking lots and then kind of come out onto Emerson Way there, which is identified also in orange. They are requesting several variances as part of this application, the first of which is to the building setback from property lines. The B4 zone is unique in that there is a maximum setback from property boundaries where buildings can be no further from the road than 35 feet. And the applicant has requested a variance to this requirement for the distance of 70 feet from Pleasant View or 95 feet from Emerson Way. This would allow for their turning movements and their parking lot configuration that they've proposed and allow for maximum usability and access for their guests and customers and patients. This is not an uncommon request in this one. This is one of our few B4 areas, and as we've seen in January and we've seen in previous applications for this site as it has slowly been developing over time, this is not an uncommon request to allow for their increased circulation patterns and their parking lot configuration. And so staff finds that and recommends in favor of that request in order to keep that consistent character and allow for them to have sufficient parking for their proposed use. They've also requested a driveway separation variance. So the standard for the zone, and I did mistype in the packet, is 200 feet, there's 100 feet of separation from driveway to driveway. So we want to make sure that when you're making those turn movements, you don't have immediately someone else jumping into the right in front of you, cutting you off type situation. They've requested a variance from 100 feet to 85 feet. They haven't exactly planned on their phasing yet for the next portions of the property. And given the site layout and everything, they are just trying to keep them sort of across from each other, but a little bit in variation so that they can have that increased turning movement and everything like that. And staff also recommends in favor of that request for that mobility and everything. The last item of variance request is their parking location. So in the B4 zone, it is a community forward zone, it's a pedestrian forward zone. So in keeping of the proper optics, the standard for that zone is to not have parking in front of your building. They are requesting a waiver for that requirement in order to put parking along the frontages, since they need that additional turning radius for those larger vehicles and that parking for their patients and staff and everything like that. They'd like to set their building back a little bit further and to not have that area be dead space. They'd like to have that have some form of use and are requesting that they put that parking in that location. Again, based off of everything staff does recommend in favor of that request as well. Staying in the parking realm, the zone standard for the B4 is 1 space per 250 square feet of gross floor area, or in this instance, it would be required that they provide 98 parking spaces for which having to be ADA per the standards. They provide that they are proposing providing 136 spaces, and 14 of those being ADA accessible spaces, both of which exceed the minimum standard for the zone and for ADA space provision. They did not, or were not required to do a traffic study as part of this, but they did give me a brief kind of statement of this is the number of trips that would be generated per the ITE 11th edition. Specifically that the medical office building with emergency room services would generate 47 AM trips and 54 PM trips. So that is under the standard for when a traffic study is allowed. For general reference, the standard is when you exceed 100 AM or PM peak hour trip window, 2 hour windows, then you need to have a traffic study performed. So they are under that standard. They do propose some landscaping as part of the development. When you have a non-accessing roadway, there is additional landscaping for screening purposes, and they do satisfy that requirement. Specifically, I am referencing the McClellan Circle frontage that they have. The vehicle use area landscaping is also required, which would be along Pleasant View, Amerson Way, and along that south side as they approach towards the school in Southland Christian, and they do provide that. They are also required to provide interior landscaped islands in either peninsula or two-sided arrangements, which they do show and satisfy those requirements. And they, because they are redeveloping the property, they are required to have a total minimum tree canopy of 24%, which they do satisfy through their property perimeter, BUA perimeter, and interior landscaping requirements. Additional considerations that I have just noted in the plan, or the staff report, just talking about the Legacy Trail. At this time, the path is not proposed to go through this property, but it has taken on several forms over time. And so staff just wanted to make a note that we recommend including that condition that if Legacy's Trail needs to be realigned and happens to go through this property, that the applicant would work with the city and county on that project. I've not heard anything to the contrary, but that's generally what we've been trying to expect people to undertake, just in case when they're doing work for that, they determine that a route is no longer feasible, but it's still going through this property, so it just allows them to, and the city and county, to have the maximum usability and execution of that plan. This is also in the Royal Spring Wellhead area, so they are subject to the Wellhead Committee that's chaired by Georgetown Municipal Water and Sewer, and they will need to meet with that group and get on their agenda and have review in order to ensure that the proposed use is not going to negatively impact that. And condition 3 in the conditions of approval is that they be subject to all conditions of the Wellhead Protection Committee. Last two is just stormwater management. The first of which is stormwater management. There's a master stormwater plan for the area, and so they need to be participating in that and working with Anderson Developments in that one. And then the last one is that a photometric plan be required with emergency room services. It is not inaccurate to assume that they would be taking those additional hours for service provisions, and so we just want to make sure that the lighting that they do put in is not going to have off-site impacts or glare or anything like that. Ultimately, though, staff does recommend approval of the preliminary development plan, subject to the 3 conditions I went over previously, and there are 16 conditions of approval as part of this request, several of which are to make it consistent with previous approved development phases of the Anderson development at Amerson. Trying to think of if there's any ones in particular that I need to pull to. There has been a change to the 15th condition. Staff had previously used the language that was agreed upon between the board and Anderson when they came in last month, that traffic control devices be installed and paid for according to KYTC, and it would not be the responsibility of Georgetown-Scott County to incur the cost of that. In agreement with the attorney and everybody with this project, it has been recommended that that be changed to the following condition 15 up there, which just states that the cost of installation is not the responsibility of Georgetown-Scott County should traffic control devices be installed or be required by KYTC regulations. Besides that, though, there are no further changes and no really distinct condition that I feel appropriate to call it specifically. Yes?
Elise, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss it, or what are the hours of operation?
I will defer that one to the applicant.
Then I have a
Mhm.
question, because this came up several times about this light. Does the local government need to pass some kind of ordinance, y'all don't have to deal with this, that as far as who's paying for what when it comes to light? Does there need to be why do we have to have that in here? Does there need to be a local ordinance that says the city of Georgetown is not responsible for it?
I would say that a local ordinance would not be required at this time. It would be the cost of the developer practice that we've kind of kept going forward, but if you'd like to speak more to that.
Clarity is always key. It never hurts to be very clear that the municipality has no obligations whatsoever. If, property gets sold, there are 10 developers down the road, it's 100 years from now, it's always good to be able to look back and say Georgetown has no obligations whatsoever. As far as the hours of operations, the ER aspect of this is open 24 hours a day. The medical building itself is probably more around 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. for your hours of operation.
Urgent treatment, I guess, included in addition?
Yes.
The traffic signal, well, once it's in, we know from time to time what do I want to say here like that? Lost my words.
The timing?
The timing. Who determines that? Does the local police
Georgetown-
department or a state?
Yeah.
Who? They do? They control them there? Okay.
That's never been on anything we've read before.
No.
About who's gonna pay for a stoplight.
It's what this change is truly to ensure clarity. Everybody's on the exact same page before anything gets done. Anderson Communities has graciously agreed. They're putting up the light. They're paying for it. KTC's not on the hook. Georgetown's not on the hook. Scott County's not on the hook.
Okay. Thank you.
Send the church the electric bill.
All right, any questions from the commission staff? Have any questions from the audience? I've got just one of these things that just came to my mind here. We've got a medical office building with an emergency room, services. We've got a new a new medical office building across from the hospital. We've got hospitals and we've got clinics. So how's this medical office building different with an emergency room, or what's the purpose? Just for clarification.
I was not sworn in previously.
Do you swear?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time tonight. We are excited about the
Excuse me, your name, please.
My name's Howard Farrell.
Howard Farrell?
Yes, it's Ferriell. And I'm serving as AVP of Real Estate, excuse me, for Baptist Health. We're excited about the opportunity that this brings and to be a part of Amerson Orchard and Georgetown. The product that we're bringing forth is really kind of unique. We're the only healthcare system in the state of Kentucky and southern Indiana that is offering a fully serviced freestanding emergency department combined with an urgent care all under one roof. And in addition to the obvious of bringing healthcare to each of these communities that we're going to, it also serves to be more efficient and be less cost or more cost effective for both the patient, the insurer, and the healthcare provider. So what we're proposing is a freestanding ED. It's a fully fledged, fully furnished freestanding ED manned by ER physicians, the same physicians that work in our hospitals. And then there's also an urgent care component that is there to service patients that are less critical. I think most everyone knows that one of the major costs in healthcare is when people utilize an ER for something that's relatively minor. So this checks that box. And then in addition to that, our plan is to have the second story, second floor of our facility will be medical office and have things like primary care and other specialists. We have received a certificate of need. Your question kind of hinted at need. We have received a certificate of need from the state of Kentucky for the ER in this location.
Is it similar to the facility Baptist Health just built? You can see it from 75, almost to Hamburg.
Well, it's not near that big.
Right, but similar in terms of the usage of it and, you know, ER.
Yes, right now,
offices.
because we don't have a hospital there yet, that is being utilized as a freestanding ED. Yes, ma'am.
Will this have overnight beds or just?
No, no beds. It will be open the emergency room department will be open 24 hours. The urgent care, I believe, is 7 to 9.
So, what I think you're saying is the personnel there will be able to make that decision rather they just need, a patient needs urgent care or they need emergency room, but if they don't have overnight beds, what is the emergency room doing that urgent care couldn't, I guess?
Sure, it's a great question. Each patient is seen by an ER physician, and they are triaged either one of two paths, either down the urgent care path and that billing avenue as well, or for more critical patients or patients that are needing a heightened level of care, it's through the ER, the emergency department route. If they are in need of going to a hospital, the physician, attending physician will make that decision, and then they'll be appropriately transported where they need to be, whether it be Baptist Health Lexington or some other correct facility.
And I just have a question for you long term. This may not be a fair question, I still want to ask it for the community anyway.
Sure.
So do you have plans of building at some point a full-fledged hospital here in Georgetown? Is that on the?
We have never discussed that, so I really, to my knowledge, the answer would be no. Certainly, this site is not appropriate for a hospital. We do have plans to eventually come back, hopefully, and maybe request approval for another medical office building. I think it was mentioned by staff that we have the property right there to the south. But no, I have no knowledge or thoughts about a hospital in Georgetown.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Any other questions from audience or from the commission? All right, seeing none, I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion for approval of PDP 2025-03 with the change to condition 15 to reflect this statement.
Is 03 or 02?
I'm sorry?
02 or 03?
This says 3.
Okay.
Which one is it?
It's 2.
2? Okay.
2.
Sheet says 3. The agenda says 2. No, sorry, I'm looking at the Baptist Church. Never mind. 3. Definitely 3. Definitely 2. 3. 2.
2.
2. With a change to 15 to reflect that Georgetown-Scott County has no responsibility to pay for the traffic light.
All right, I have a motion.
Second.
Mr. Garrett. All right, Mr. Jesse?
Unfortunately, I cannot vote on this. It's abstained because of my involvement in the healthcare field, so.
All right, Mr. Vest?
Yes.
Mr. Stone?
No.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Singer?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. All right.
And just for the record to note, my confusion was because number 3 also has the word Baptist in it.
Yeah.
Rarely do we have 2 agenda
I
items
did the
about
same
Baptist.
thing. I looked
Yeah.
at the map. So this,
Yeah.
all right.
I had
Next.
your back. I had your back.
What'd you say?
I had your back.
Thank you, Dewan.
And the next item on the agenda is also a public hearing for a zone code text amendment.
Chair Mifflin, before we open this public hearing, looking at the audience and understanding that we had several items postponed tonight, I believe it may be appropriate to allow anybody who had comments related to those postponed items to maybe be able to take a crack at it.
Yes. Is there, we postponed Goodwill Industries and the Bluegrass Baptist Church because of letters that were sent out with the wrong meeting location. And so we delayed that, postpone that to next month. If you still would like to make a statement or anything, we will.
Been here to know an hour ago.
Well, we made that announcement at,
I know, but we weren't here because we went to the wrong location.
so,
And we received another notice that it was postponed or canceled.
I apologize.
Meeting postponed. I didn't get anything, so.
Okay.
All right. So it's next month.
It will be next month, yes,
Will we
ma'am.
get another letter?
Yes, there will be
What's the
another
date of
letter
next
with
month's
the
meeting?
correct address
March
for the
13th.
meeting set up.
Do you mind letting us know which,
We've got it.
do you mind letting me know which property you all were here for? I always like to know. What were you here for?
Yes, we back up to that. We're 115 Dogwood, and yes.
To the Bluegrass
we are
Baptist
right
Church.
behind that proposed area that's to be developed.
And ma'am, which one were you all? You did
Yes.
get notified? And how about the lady back there?
Hazelwood, which is in the.
Yeah, all of them by Bluegrass Baptist Church.
No, Ashton Grove.
No, that's Ashton Grove, Goodwill Industries.
On an already congested, narrow entrance to what used to be the bypass, McClellan Circle,
Yeah,
which is no longer a bypass, but a stoplight every 50 yards.
I know it's unfortunate that you all here and not heard, but in trying to do absolute the right thing, and it's not, that's the reason why it's not being heard tonight, so other people, more people will know about it. So make sure that you understand that.
and we apologize again. We made that announcement and didn't realize you were coming in for that. So sorry.
And you're more than welcome to stay.
Make sure you
It's
tell
been so
your
much fun so
tell
far,
your
right?
neighbors. Tell your neighbors about the
Unless
next
Holden
meeting.
brought them, no, but.
Tell your neighbors, everybody, please.
There's at least two next time. Just what take it.
All right, with that out of the way, I will now open the public hearing and turn it over to our esteemed leader.
All right, Chair Mifflin, commission members, this again is a continuation of the conversation that we had last month. This text amendment hopes to accomplish several different things all in one go, understanding that the changes that we're making tonight will not be the last changes that we make to our zoning code. The changes that we're looking at tonight are primarily concerned with definitions, special uses, and then modifications to several of our R and B zones. The copy that you have in front of you should have red text where text has been added and red strike through where text has been removed. Some of the highlights, and I'm just going to try to hit the highlights on this. As you know, the community recently had a referendum on the addition of medicinal cannabis as a use type in our community. That was largely voted in favor of. And so we have incorporated definitions associated with medicinal cannabis into the text of the document. We had also run out of numbers with our specific use regulations with the way we had previously numbered them. So we have changed the way that we number specific use regulations in the body of the text. That was allowed us to create room. We have now inserted those regulations specific to medicinal cannabis into the specific use regulations section, which is 2.5. And now it goes 2.5.1, 2.5.2, 2.5.3, and we'll add as many specific uses as are needed to make sure that our community members can do the things that they want to do. The other changes, as we talked about last time, have to do, again, with taking our recently updated comprehensive plan and modifying our development regulations to better align with those. And so what we've done is we've specifically taken a look at the R2 and R3 zoning districts and made some very minor modifications to them. And so the first thing that we're looking at doing is changing the way that we calculate density. Previously, we had calculated density on the net. We are now looking to do it on the gross. The difference between those two is when you calculate on the net, you take your overall acreage and you minus out all the acreage associated with roadways or utilities or other infrastructure. And then you have however many units would be allowed. By doing it on a gross, it's much simpler for staff as well as a potential developer, as well as a property owner to understand that if I have 10 acres, I can just do whatever the density per acre is times 10. We don't have to do a little bit of math on the front end. Just makes it a little bit easier. The other thing that we've done, though, is we've started to modify some of the language specific to planned unit developments or planned development projects. The Gaines Farm property tonight was considered underneath a PUD. In my short time here, we've considered many projects under a PUD. As was alluded to, the last comprehensive plan cycle that we went through, we created this new future land use called mixed use. We do not currently have a mixed use zone. And so what we're trying to do is begin meeting the requirement of that future land use through PUDs. And so if you'll look at, this is going to be on page 77. We're already way at the back. This is, I think, where a lot of the conversation will be around tonight. We've taken a look at PUDs and the R2 zone, and we've said that a planned unit development can obviously be for residential use. We're also looking for it with or without neighborhood commercial uses as defined in our section. Yes, Mr. Green?
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
Bottom. This is 77 of 81.
It's in the writing
Oh,
there.
it's in the writing.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I thought it was I didn't believe it when I read it.
You said
No
you
way
were
that's 77.
We're on page 77.
I've never seen that.
I was just glad we didn't have to talk about 3 through 6.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see no red in those. Moving on.
You know what? That's an entirely different
Yes,
conversation.
it is.
Yes, so we're looking at utilizing planned unit developments to begin bringing about this idea of a mixed-use development, where we're okay with having limited commercial intrusions into our residential areas, the same way that we're okay with having limited residential intrusions into our commercial areas, and understanding that if we can get those two things to play well together underneath one planned development project, that's going to benefit all parties concerned. If we look on to the R3 district, this is where staff views the R3 district, again, that is our highest density zone that we currently have. We need our R3 zone to be able to build the types of housing, the levels of housing to meet this housing demand that we're seeing every month. It seems to come before us. And so what we've done is, as opposed to saying that we allow for single-family dwellings or duplexes and multifamily dwellings, we've struck that. Instead, what we're advising is that all residential uses, meaning lot dimension standards, excluding mobile home parks and mobile home subdivisions, with a maximum of 16 units per gross acre. So essentially what we're doing is we're just trying to add a little bit of flexibility. We don't necessarily know all the types of housing that are going to be proposed to us, but if it's a cottage court development, or if it's a row of townhouses, or if it's again, a 3-story walk-up apartment building, we know that that should fit in the R3 zone as long as it meets all those other dimensional standards. If we look on, we've also made changes to the B1 neighborhood. This is again, if you'll notice, that was what we referenced in the R2 zone. We've tried to change really how we're, like the purpose statement, or kind of the clarifying text of what neighborhood commercial is. And we've really tried to hone in on something that would be compatible within a neighborhood. And this is a conversation that we have month in and month out in our office almost daily about what kind of businesses can fit into a neighborhood and not cause, undue hardship to those people around it. And so we've tried our best to be able to do that. And in this case, we've put just the slightest amount of, kind of a characteristic definition. And that's where we write at the very bottom of the sentence there. Commercial uses within this zone shall be limited to less than 8,000 square feet in size and operate no more than 18 hours a day. There's a lot of conversation that can go into that, but essentially what we're really looking at is we know that if you put Target in the middle of your neighborhood, we will have a lot of people with real concerns about why we put Target in the middle of your neighborhood. Same thing with 24-hour operations. We understand that it's best for businesses to be open at hours when customers can come to them. We also understand that when you buy into a neighborhood, there's an expectation of quiet hours associated with that. So we're just trying to add small things like that. At the same time, again, we're messing around with that planned unit or planned development project section, where now if something is zoned B1, which is very limited if I understand, if anywhere, now we're allowing for this idea that we can have limited residential development in that area. We're saying not to exceed 4.4 dwelling units per acre, which is equivalent to our R1C zone. So you'll see a lot of kind of back and forth where we're trying to tie these zones together. If we'll turn the page over to B4, again, now you'll see again red text in that planned development project section with now we're going up to 12 dwelling units per gross acre. That, again, the B4, that's a higher intensity commercial use. We also understand, again, that as some of our most premium commercial zoning areas, we don't want it to just be apartments. That would be taking away the best and highest use for that land. But if we want to incorporate what is equivalent to our R2 density development, if we can do that and it's above the first floor, we're going to preserve that bottom floor for those commercial uses. If we can want to add residential above that, then we can do that. And the other one that's been added here too is inpatient, that's underneath conditional uses, inpatient medical facilities.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
Some communities, like what you described earlier about the first floor being commercial, second floor being residential, do at times allow the reverse procedure where they'll allow residential on the first floor, commercial on the second floor. So there's a few communities in Kentucky that does that.
What type of thing, where,
Louisville's done it several times.
I mean, what type of businesses would be up on the second or third floor?
Could be anything professional. It's
offices.
different things. So there would be a way they could do that. I guess that would be an exception they could apply for or whatever. If someone wanted to do that.
So again, it's staff intention with this, again, with that B4 community commercial area, would be probably to preserve that as first floor commercial. I think if you were to look at some of our other zones, that might make a little bit more sense. But again, as a part of the conversation, the purpose of doing that was to really facilitate stacked mixed-use development. And if that stack gets flipped, I think you could really make an argument that that meets the intent.
Thank you.
Absolutely. The other thing that has been suggested for change to came up again tonight. We're specifically talking about our development. It's our chart of heights and restrictions associated with those. What we are trying to do also with this is to modify the maximum height requirement in the R3 zone from 2 stories with the ability to increase it for 3 with increased setbacks. As we've seen month in and month out, the standard development at this point is for the development community is telling us they need 3 stories. And so only in our R3, which is our highest density residential zone, we are recommending that we allow for 3-story development by right. Keep the same number of units. We're not changing the density. We are going to change the structures in which those can go without coming before us and getting another variance for the same thing that we keep seeing variance requests for time and time again. So with that, I'd like to take any questions.
Do you limit any ability to, I don't know how you would do this, but to have some caveat relative to the topography when it comes to 3-story buildings? As an example, it's, I guess, a Georgetown Community Hospital building. We approved it some time ago, and it's all lit up in different colors every month, and I think what I didn't anticipate when we approved it certainly was that it sits up on a hill. So even from my house, way down on South Broadway, right, going south,
Is that May?
it like sits up like this big glowing mecca. It's not very attractive or aesthetically pleasing relative to the overall aesthetic of Georgetown, because it sits up higher to start with. So I don't know if it's even possible to consider that topography, but just a question.
You could consider that. I need about an hour to try to write something down. But generally speaking, again, you know, what we're trying to appeal to is that, I'm just trying to avoid needless variance requests associated with that.
I get it.
I know when we calculate height for things like signage, or if we calculate height, it's height above grade, which is calculated based on elevation at the street frontage. Right, Ben? Am I on so far for this? Sounds good to me.
Sounds like you know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
and so what we could do is, number one, I'd appreciate the opportunity for you guys to support this text amendment as provided tonight, with the understanding that if this becomes an issue, I will be very quick to come back in. We can always remodify it.
Hey, I've got a question for
Yes.
you. With this gross and net acres,
Yeah.
maybe I missed something along the way, but if you could have, just as an example, one building per acre, and you've got 4 acres, but 3.5 of them are sitting on a cliff, you can still put 4 units on that one little area?
No, that is not the intention of this. The
Yeah,
intent
okay.
of this is instead to say, let's take a look at our R1C zone, 4.4 dwelling units per acre.
Yeah.
A developer comes in with 10 acres of perfectly developable land.
All right,
At gross, we say you get 44 units.
yeah,
At net, we say first we have to subtract out the amount of acreage associated with specifically roads and other infrastructure.
yeah,
And so if that's 2 acres of total roadway throughout, you'd minus 2 from the 10, 8 times 4.4. You're getting less units. And so again, for simplicity's sake, if you've got 10, we're gonna multiply it times the density of 10. This does not, again, relate to whenever we have somebody who has a large-scale proposal like we talked about tonight, or we have land in the C1 zone.
yeah.
It's always been that C1, if it's getting zoned C1, you don't get credit for that, for density purposes, correct? That is not changing.
So you can still deduct the number of units because of the topography or whatever. But
Yeah.
you're just gonna calculate it from the get-go, gross development, and then if you have to make some changes, you can.
Absolutely.
Well, my question, but if you got the cliff, but you can still, with all the proper setbacks and all the rest, get your 44 in, you can still get 44.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is we don't want to needlessly remove development potential from parcels. And saying what your overall density is not the same as saying where you're gonna put each of those units. And all
Okay.
that comes up now for PDPs and subdivisions. We'll figure it out.
All right. I thought I had one other question, and I forget where I wrote my note. Oh, I know what it was. Rhett and I talked about A5 at some point in time.
Yes.
I don't see it in here. If just not done anything with it yet.
Yeah, so the intent is, as you are aware, we're currently going through a process with our agricultural stakeholders group.
Uh-huh.
It is staff's intention that upon the conclusion of that, we'll be back in here with specific recommendations to our agricultural zones, and we'll address them at that time.
Okay. Sounds fair
I'm
enough.
glad you brought that up, just so that you're aware of. There are still a lot of people in town that are aware of those meetings, and they have been getting those at the restaurant. And a lot of the farmers have said they were totally unaware that this was going on. So I'm glad that, you know, y'all put that flyer out. I would continue to put that out in places like Southern States, different places like that. Yeah, there's a lot of them saying they still didn't know, so.
Yeah, so we are currently building an email list associated with that. If you've seen the flyer, there's a QR code on it. That QR code, if you scan it, allows you to basically sign up. And we'll have our next meeting actually next week, February 18th, and we'll continue this conversation. Everyone's always welcome to attend. It's a very productive group so far.
Yeah, I'm glad you're doing that, because the word is getting out,
Yeah.
you know. Thanks for
What'd
the
you put
flyer.
out the stamping ground, Red, anything?
Nothing in stamping ground proper yet. I've been to Meade, Southern States, Stockyards, went to the ag departments at Red Cross School, gave it to all those people. If you've got some suggestions for stamping ground proper, I
My shop, drop it off at my shop.
can do that.
We'll do it.
How about the seed company in town?
Highlander,
Hi- yeah.
it's a good option.
A lot
Yeah,
of farmers.
a lot of folks go through there. I would, are we through?
Unless there's members of the public who would like to comment?
Here's a viewer.
I will close the public meeting, and I would like to say that Holden had a meeting, a coffee with the planners a couple of weeks ago down at Rebecca's, and we had a fabulous turnout, and it was not hostile or anything like that. Had a lot of people with questions and suggestions, and it just went very well. A lot of interplay between different people, some from the county, a lot of downtown merchants, and just citizens coming from home, asking a lot of questions and making a lot of suggestions, and it was just a fabulous meeting. It really was, for a couple of hours, just sit around and talking about the way we wanted Georgetown to proceed. And
Was there anything you could share with us? What was is there a certain theme that came through the public, what they had to say?
I don't think there was a general theme, but there was, I'll let Rhett.
Staff will request that we, having closed the public hearing, take a vote on it before we.
Do you need a motion on
Oh,
approving
you
the
need a
text
motion,
amendment?
I need a
yeah,
motion.
yeah.
I'll make a
All right.
motion to approve the zoning code text
And
amendment.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay.
So I had already closed the
Yes.
public meeting there, so.
If I could just give a little, maybe color to that coffee with the planner, it was incredibly encouraging. As Chair Mifflin has expressed, there was very little contention about anything, and there's few issues that brought up any contention. I would just say that while there were some disagreeing standpoints, everyone was very respectful. Now, the one thing that became abundantly clear, and I think I talked about this my very first time up in front of you guys, is this is a very special place. And the residents echo that opinion. And one of the greatest kind of kicks that I think we got out of it is when I said, you know, there's a contingency of people who don't think there's anything particularly special about, you know, where we are here. And the audacity of a statement like that, you should have heard it roll across everyone who was there, because this is a very special place. To go with that, though, there was a resounding kind of reiteration of the importance of smart growth, of careful consideration and deliberation as we look at these issues. And so that, again, is what staff strives to do. Our advice to this commission is always one of smart growth and careful consideration of the topics. And that's, I think, where we're going to be able to best serve our community, is if we continue to provide that level of service. And we do take the time to ask the hard questions. I'll say, you know, that coffee with the planner, we can plan to have more of those styles of meetings. As was alluded to just today, myself and the rest of the planning staff were at Great Crossing High School, where we talked to about 60 kids about planning and the public process, invited them to all come out tonight, and they had other things going on, I suspect. But it is going to be a continued conversation to understand that if we're doing our job, we can't just have these once-a-month meetings. And again, to that point, I thank each and every one of the commissioners for your job in representing this office out and about and in the community. Thank you.
How are you
Thank you.
enjoying Scott County,
Loved it.
Georgetown?
Oh, it's so
It's
great.
good?
Yeah.
Your wife likes it?
Well, you know, we're practically neighbors.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Within walking distance.
Yeah.
All right. Have anything else? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Done.